learning under Katsuri Shibata for a while was it showed me a lot of the little intricate things that I was actually doing incorrectly. It really had me rethink my fundamentals.
Sarcophagus, which he is the mummy. He is a fez-wearing mummy with a red coat and really bad puns.
I was RDC's first title fight, and now it's the first international fight. So I was super excited to have an opponent from overseas.
You, petty human with the mask, tell me where Optimus Prime is.
Hey, am I seeing things, or is there like a giant talking robot looking at me right now?
Do not mess with me, human. Bring me Optimus Prime.
How about I bring you a hockey stick to the face, pal? Google!
I went up to the luxury boxes where they had a box for family and friends. And that's when I looked out and I saw this little tiny ring in this giant sea of people, and I was like, holy fuck, I just did that. That's crazy.
I really think Superman's going to be another Blue Beetle, the Flash situation where they end up losing money. I would like to be proven wrong. I would like for it to be good.
This week's episode is sponsored by Dubby Energy Drinks. Dubby is a brand that is tried and tested with thousands of monthly people consuming their drinks. Dubby launched with just one flavor and slowly grew, and now they have created over 15 plus unique custom-made flavors that are enjoyed by thousands of monthly customers. So get off the big energy bandwagon and check out Dubby. This is how an energy drink should be. Jitter-free, crash-free, no sugars, no artificial colors or dyes, and no calories. And right now, you can get 10% off with the promo code ATPC90. From us here at the Adam Talks podcast as a special gift for you, just for checking out the show. So go to dubby.gg and use the promo code ATPC90 to get 10% off of your order now. And we're back with another awesome episode of the Adam Talks podcast. Today we're talking to someone who investigates UAPs, UFOs, ETs, the whole shebang right here in Arkansas, where I'm from. We're talking to Allison Hartman. Thank you for coming on the show.
It is such a blessing to be here, Adam. Thank you for having me.
Hey, not a problem. Not a problem. What led you to investigate extraterrestrials or UFOs?
Well, I've always been interested in all things paranormal or unusual, but when I was 5, I actually had my very first sort of up close and personal encounter with an alien and a UFO.
Whoa.
And that really, changed my life ever since, basically. And I've been having encounters pretty frequently, especially the last 4 or 5 years. It's really been a lot. So I just said, you know what? I'm kind of tired of keeping this a secret. I didn't really talk to anybody about it. Certainly not anybody I worked with. I mean, I've been in the financial industry. I'm a financial consultant as sort of what I mainly do. And I'm sure they would all look at me like, you're nuts. But I just kind of Googled, what, there's got to be some groups in Arkansas. There's got to be some people I can talk to who understand. And I found a group that meets out of Fayetteville every month. That was a local chapter of an organization called MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network, and they've got chapters all over the country. So I started going to meetings. I became a certified field investigator with them, and started a chapter in the Little Rock area, because I'm in Greenbrier, so it was just 3 hours. I didn't want to have to drive 3 hours every month to go to Fayetteville, but and we did that for about a year with some other investigators and some other UFO enthusiasts. And then we just kind of broke up and disbanded. And now I just do it. I just offer that service kind of on my own.
Okay. See, I stumbled upon it from on Facebook with the UFO ARK group. I stumbled onto that and I was like, whoa, people got all kinds of stuff on here. It's like, this is wild. What all stuff all right, so you said 5 years old is when you had an encounter. What was that like?
Yeah.
How did that feel making contact with an extraterrestrial?
Well, I think at the time I didn't really know what to think because it was just such a weird experience. This was 1989, also in Greenbrier. I've been in Greenbrier almost my whole life, and we lived right on Highway 65. And me and my siblings, we shared a bedroom in the front of the house, and we always had our curtains closed, or else the semi truck lights would come in and stuff. And I got up one night to go to the restroom, and came back in our room and immediately noticed that the curtains were open and no one else in the house was awake. And outside the window, we had a large, like wraparound porch, and there was a school desk sitting out there because my mom was a teacher for years, and so we just had that kind of stuff. And it was sitting in this school desk outside the window, and it was just like turned and looking at me, just dead on looking at me. It was the typical gray alien, like you see it on the X-Files. Nothing, just very stereotypical, with the large black eyes and all of that. And it was just looking at me, and I was just kind of frozen, just kind of standing there looking at it. That probably went on for, I don't know, it could have been 20 seconds, not too long. And I just kind of walked over to bed. And I got into bed, and we had another window in the bedroom that faced out into the backyard. And I just had this like inkling that I needed to look out that window too. So I opened the curtains, and we have a storm cellar in our backyard in my childhood home, and it was like 20 feet away from the window. And so in between that and the storm cellar was a ship. And it was, I would say, a typical saucer, just domed on the top, domed on the bottom, and it was sitting on like tripod legs, and it had these colorful lights all around the rim of it that were blinking. And it wasn't huge. It was about the size of the storm cellar, so like a large family van maybe size. And I closed the curtain and I got into bed, and I just kind of put my blanket kind of up over my head like this. I remember clenching my fist and closing my eyes and just not knowing what to do. I don't know I don't remember really being scared, but I just remember being like, I don't understand what's happening. And the next thing I remember is like waking up the next morning, I open my eyes and I see like light through my blanket, and I pulled it down, and I remember being excited at that point, and I just ran around the house like telling everybody that, I saw this alien. And
Wow.
so yeah, that was my first time that I had anything happen. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. That is nuts. That's crazy. Not like in a bad way, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't imagine being able to say that I've seen one up close or anything like that. Was it like, all right, I don't know if you remember any of it, but was the skin smooth? Was it textured? Could you see that much of it?
Yeah, I mean, it was dark outside, but it was also dark inside the house, so my eyes had adjusted, and it was gray skin. It was kind of wrinkly. It had like a very thin neck, and I could really only see it from like the waist up because it was sitting in this desk. And so I don't know how tall it was, but it was clearly like very thin, and I mean, no hair, no ears, no clothes. It was just, I think there was a little slit for the mouth, but other than that, I mean, all I could really see was just the huge eyes. And
Wow.
I remember
That,
like not being scared because I knew if I screamed that I would wake up my siblings, and I didn't want to get in trouble and wake them up.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty wild.
How many confirmed UFO sightings do you have?
Do I have personally,
Well,
or
yeah.
that
How
I've
many?
investigated?
Well, even that would be good too.
I don't know that I've kept account, honestly. For my own personal life, I had experiences when I was like 5, 6, and then I don't really have much memory of anything until 2021. That's when they started ramping up again. And I've had, I mean, I don't know what your level of belief is, or any of your listeners, but I've been taken several times,
Oh wow.
by several different beings from my home. And I'm always one of these that's trying to get like evidence, like checking the doorbell cameras, checking whenever we open or close a door because we have sensors that go to an app that tell me, and looking for like burn marks in the yard. Like I have that very investigative mind where I'm trying to get this hard evidence to show to people, because people look at me like, you're just making this up. And I'm like, I'm not. Like, this is very real.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of, Arkansas is really interesting. We have a lot of unique geography. It's, of course, the natural state. And I've had a lot of people that have also had Sasquatch encounters, especially in, like the Ozark area and things like that. I don't know if you
Like
know,
the
but we,
kind of like the Boggy Creek monster.
yeah, yeah. Anywhere there's, and we have a lot of cave systems also in the state. So we actually have one of the more famous UFO abduction incidents that happened out of Devil's Den or near Devil's Den Park area. I want to say it was in the 70s. I don't know if you've ever heard of Terry Lovelace, but he was, I want to say, a former, I'm going to get this wrong. I should have looked this up. He was like a former senator, congressman, or something from another state. And he had connections here, and he came with one of his friends, and they were staying up near Devil's Den. And yeah, just a very famous case of them being abducted and taken and coming back and having
Whoa.
burns and all kinds of things. They had to go to the hospital. And he still, excuse me, Terry Lovelace, he's written books and gone on all kinds of podcasts and shows. And but that's a really interesting Arkansas story.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of caves up there too. Arkansas actually has the largest continuous deposit of quartz crystals in the world is in Arkansas. So, I don't know. Some people think that they're interested in that if they're coming after resources or whatever, but I just thought it was an interesting tidbit.
What is your thoughts on why they would be visiting so often?
I mean, I think it's a lot of different things, honestly. They might be interested in some of our resources. They're definitely interested in a lot of people. I think there are a lot of people that they, like me, have some type of interest in, or they take our DNA, or whatever the case is. I think it's just different and I've had encounters with so many different types of beings that I don't know that they all share the same agenda or anything. It's just the most recent stories that I've gotten from people that I've either investigated or people have just reported it to me and maybe didn't want an investigation over the past few years have comprised in the Little Rock area. There's been a lot of triangle ships, like large black triangle ships that have been spotted, some in broad daylight when like
Whoa.
one person can see it, but other people like on the same street are looking in the same direction and can't see it at all. um, that was a
How
crazy
does
one.
that?
Well, I don't know. I know, they have the cloaking technology, and I think they're such higher technologically that we can't even fathom what they can and can't do. Um, I don't know. From the experience I have, I feel like they can sense our emotions too. So if they know so and so is going to be scared, but this other person's not, maybe they don't want to freak out, these other people who are going to have
Yeah.
a sighting. But I had a gentleman call me a few weeks ago, and he was just outside of Little Rock, and it was actually a nighttime sighting, and he was just out on his back porch, like having a smoke or something. And it was a clear night, real starry night, and he just noticed like he just started feeling really funny, I guess. And he looked up, and he didn't see a ship, but it's like all the stars were blocked out in this like triangle pattern. It was kind of moving across right above his house. So he knew there was an object there blocking out the stars, but he couldn't actually see it. So I get a lot of reports of that type of stuff. Also Dallas County, Chico County, super rural areas, have had a lot of reports also.
What are some of your most interesting finds in doing this?
Most people that report to me have only just maybe seen a ship or something in the sky. Don't get too many reports of people who are willing to talk about they've been taken or something like that. I wish I would get more of that because, I don't know, I'm just interested in all of that. But I don't know. I think they're very curious and they want to know about humans, and I don't know. I think there's a level of experimentation, but also observation.
Mhm.
I know that I feel like they're interested in like the nuclear power plant near Mount Nebo. Um, there's been a lot of sightings around the Woolly Hollow area. There's a lake there. I know there's a lot of lakes down near like in Chico County and things like that. So The more remote areas definitely get more traffic. What I have found interesting, though, just in the past few years, is it's not been limited to those remote areas. I'm hearing people in Little Rock or, I had one up sort of near Heber, Clinton area, which that is more rural, but it's still a lot more populated than like Dallas County.
Yeah.
And even like Hot Springs, there's me and my husband went out there. It's been, I don't know, maybe summer last year, and we did a CE5 event. I don't know if you are familiar with what that is, but
Nope.
it's basically so J. Allen Hynek, he's gone now, but basically he was a scientist who came up with the CE5 or the CE scale, close encounters. So close encounters are the third kind. You've probably heard that term. So there's close encounters of the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth kind. It goes up 5 levels.
Wow.
And the 5th level is, well, let me backtrack. The first level is like you see something distant in the sky. The second level is, and I might be getting this backwards, but the second level is you see something within like 500 feet of you. The third level is you see like a being or something. And the fourth level is you have some type of physical contact with a being. The 5th level is human initiated contact. So people will do what's called CE5 events. Well, they'll go out in like remote areas in the middle of the night with like-minded people and do like meditations and invite, a sighting. And I've had a lot of success doing it on my own as well as with groups. And the last one I did was in the Hot Springs area. Somebody else was hosting it, so we just joined along. And we saw a lot of just random things shooting across the sky, like right when we would do something specific. So I don't know if your listeners are interested, just look up CE5 and you can try it yourself and see if you can get a sighting, because I think they're more open to that if we kind of invite them in. But yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. I didn't even know anything about any of that. CE5, I didn't know there was a scale. I've only heard of close encounters of the third kind, mainly, I guess, from the movie or whatever, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But that's awesome. I didn't know any of that information, so it's really cool getting new information presented to you that you don't know about. I personally, you got to think, there's something more out there. In my mind, we can't be the only intelligent life in this galaxy, in this universe, or anything like that. I don't know how far it goes. I don't know how far outside of our galaxy or within our galaxy or anything like that, but there's a lot of compelling evidence. So I'm not off of the horse as far as believing it. You know what I mean? What's the most challenging part of these investigations? Is it just finding the proof, or is it something completely different?
I don't know that it's finding the proof. I think it's finding the people willing to report.
Okay.
There's not enough of it, I think. And so it's hard to like compare data. Or even, this is what I get a lot of. People will they'll report, they'll reach out to me, either email or whatever, and I'll follow up and try to get more information. And they just, all of a sudden they ghost me. They don't want me to, you know what I mean? Like they just want to let me know kind of something happened, but then they don't want to take it any further. So that's been challenging. Like I feel like I can't really complete my job and really tell them what I think it is without them giving me the information. But obviously it's very challenging that there's still a large swath of people in my life that don't know about this side of my life. And so I think other people like me that can relate to that, feel really isolated or demonized, I guess, because they can't, like, I'm not just going to go to the grocery store and start telling people that, I could have seen aliens or whatever.
Waiting behind somebody in line to check out. You're like, hey, aliens are real, right? like, what are you talking? Why are you talking to me right now? I don't know you.
I try to be like funny when I go into public. Like I'll wear, like I have lots of different like little earrings like this that are like spaceships, or I'll wear like a shirt that's got a ship on it or something. And I will get looks from just strangers looking at me like, you're going to, you're going to HELL because you believe in that kind of stuff. And I just laugh and I'm like, whatever, but.
You're going to hell because you're wearing that alien shirt. What are you thinking? Why are you doing this? Oh, people are just crazy sometimes. It doesn't make sense. Uh, what does UFO investigations and ET investigations mean to you?
I really try to get the person as close of an answer as I can as to what I really think it is. Is it man-made? Is it a natural phenomenon? Is it more paranormal? I've had a few of those lately where I'm like, this is really not in the realm at all, and they maybe send me videos or pictures, and I'm like, I'm gonna send you to my paranormal investigator friend because I think it's more on that side. Um, but yeah, I do a lot of research on what's happening in the sky with flight radar and tracking satellites. And, a lot of people will mistake. We've had a lot of extra planets in the sky lately. Venus is really prominent, and Saturn, and we've had a lot of planetary alignments, and people sometimes think that that's maybe a UFO because all of a sudden they're not used to seeing this extremely bright star in that spot. And they're like, what is that, um, so I like to provide people with some type of answer to make them feel better about what they experienced, I guess. And, people do have expectations for me to say, yes, that was a UFO. And I would say, it's like 50-50, where I'd be like, no, I know I can show you exactly the evidence that I have that was a satellite, blah, 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 blah. Or I'll say, you know what? I've checked everything. That's an unknown. Don't know what it is. So you can call it a UFO if you want, but I don't.
Yeah. Do you only investigate here in the state, or do you investigate other places as well?
Yeah, just Arkansas. But I get calls. Like I had someone who found me on Facebook, same way you did, and she was from Florida and wanted to tell me her story. And I was like, okay. She didn't want an investigation or anything. She just wanted to be able to talk to somebody. And I've done a couple other podcasts too. And I actually have my own podcast. Me and my twin sister, we started a podcast this year. And I always tell people, if you do have a story and you don't want it investigated, or you don't want to put it into some, email or writing or whatever, to just reach out to me by email, and we'll hook up on the phone, and they can just unload on me, tell me their story.
Yeah.
Because maybe they can't tell anybody else. Maybe there's nobody else in their life they can tell that to. So I like to kind of provide that as a service too, that people can just tell me their stories, and then they can go about their life and they feel better. So
Definitely. You were saying something about having different ways to look into this and research. What kind of tools do you use to investigate? How do you investigate these occurrences?
So I have a very detailed questionnaire to start off with. I want to know everything up to how you felt, what you were doing before, what you were doing after, who was with you. Tell me all about the ship, color, shape, distance, light, everything. I try to get as much detail as possible about the event. And then from there, I've got just a whole host of websites that I'll use, like flight trackers and things like that. And, even space debris, jet, or, rocket launches, just all types of things. So I try to investigate, like, okay, what was the weather? Were there clouds? Was it raining? All these types of things you have to take into account, especially if it's a sighting in the sky, because you want to eliminate what it could be instead. It's great if they have photo or videos, but not a lot of people can get that. It's, it's going to be blurry or grainy, or it's like, I don't really, even if they have video, if it's at night, and it's just, you really can't tell much from it. But I will investigate the metadata to make sure that what they're saying matches up with their video. It really belongs to them. Time, place, date, all that stuff matches up. And I go through various databases. So there are some free databases and paid databases where other people have logged their sightings. So I'll go in and search for like the time range and put in various filters and see if anybody else has reported something similar in that area to maybe substantiate. And just a lot of online tools and things like that. And then if it warrants it, I will go and physically go out to that person's place of residence or wherever they had the sighting, so I can get, direct line of sight. I could really get a sense of what they're seeing, or where they have seen it and things like that. I've never had anywhere I've had to go and collect physical evidence and have it analyzed, because there's not anybody that has been like, one landed in my yard or anything like that. But, that would be, hopefully I would be prepared for something like that. But yeah, a lot of it is just a lot of online research and the questionnaire, and then I have a lot of phone calls with the person, and then I send them kind of a report that says, here's what I think it is, here's all the details, and, good luck.
Okay. You said that earlier it's a 50-50 sort of thing. People were asking, like, people want you to be able to go, yes, it is a UFO, but it's like a 50-50 thing. It's more or less half the time, it's not always going to be confirmed that that's what it is. How many investigations would you say, if you were just a guess, how many investigations would you say you've completed over your time span?
I don't want to say completed because a lot of them start and then they don't want me to finish. So as far as the many reports that I've gotten or investigations that I've at least started, just for Arkansas, I would say is probably a few dozen.
Oh, wow.
I've only been doing this a few years, so obviously that will grow. I've had a lot more people just call me or email me, and I won't know, from all over the country, just to tell me their story. But there's not a lot of. I really wish people would be comfortable with reporting, honestly, because like if I'm in your backyard, I can just drive down the road and come talk to you and investigate. I don't know of anybody else in Arkansas that's doing that other than maybe people that are still affiliated with the MUFON group. Because I know there are some field investigators that still do that. There's maybe only 3 or 4, but that they only get cases if someone reports directly to MUFON, and then MUFON assigns them those cases. So they're not getting just calls from random people and things like that. So I feel like I'm probably getting a good bulk of what's happening in Arkansas. But it's not a lot compared to like Missouri. They have a huge MUFON presence, and they actually have something now. It's called the International UFO Bureau. It's a brand new organization out of that state, and they're going to start having their own reporting system. And there's a lot, like in the St. Louis kind of area, a lot of really interested people and investigators in Missouri. So.
Right on.
You would never have otherwise, I guess, known that. I mean, you think like Arizona, they get a lot of sightings. There's a lot of, Joshua Tree and Southern California and those types of areas.
Lights over Phoenix.
Exactly. Where it's very densely, or not densely populated areas, and there's hardly any light pollution. So you see a lot more happening in the sky.
I've seen the videos that people have taken, and that was a formation. That didn't look anything like freaking what they said it was, flares or something, a flare test or something like that. Out there, it didn't look anything like that, because you could see, like, they showed side by side, like I've seen side by sides with what it looks like when they drop flares to do like a test, and then I seen that. And those were perfectly like triangular, the lights lined up perfectly triangular. Whereas the flares were like all up and down, stuff like that. There's no way that was what they said it was. Do you think the government does try to cover stuff up, or has been trying to cover stuff up for a long time?
Absolutely. They don't want us to know. I mean, there has been evidence and actually congressional hearings that have happened in the last 2 years where there are whistleblowers coming out and saying these programs exist, reverse engineering exists, there has been crash retrievals. They had, one of the more famous UAP hearings in Congress was in, I want to say, June of 2023. And then they had a few more in 2024, but David Grush, it might be a name that you recognize. He was one of the main whistleblowers, super knowledgeable, super deep into those programs and knowing about those programs, or at least being in a position where he could get the information. So yeah, definitely, I don't know, maybe one day everything will be out in the open and this won't be such a taboo topic. But until the government decides they're going to give us all the information, I don't know when that's going to happen.
Well, I mean, even before him, back in it was the 90s, right? Bob Lazar was one of the first big people to say anything about that sort of thing that went super mainstream. You had back in the 40s. Back in the 40s, they had people that said they were abducted or something, right, out in California or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, or Nevada. I don't remember which. But you jump forward to the 90s, and Bob Lazar is talking about everything that happened whenever he worked at that compound near Area 51. And I listened to his Joe Rogan episode, and he talked about all of this stuff. I was like, holy cow. I mean, why would the government hide any of this stuff? Why would they keep it from us and then try to reveal it? Do you think it's like a, don't want to stir panic throughout the nation or something like that? Or do you think it's something else?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's a huge piece of it, because think about what that would mean for a lot of people. But I think a lot of it is, especially with the crash retrievals and reverse engineering, is we want to be the first ones that have that technology, because we're competing with all these other countries, and our military has to be the best. And so, yeah, keeping that stuff and a lot of it is, private corporations are the ones that are doing that. So it's been easy for them to say, oh, we don't have these records for you to subpoena, because they're not government records, because we contracted with like Lockheed Martin or some of these, private contractors that are actually have the technology and all of that. And yeah, it's a lot of issues.
So, since you were 5, whenever you first saw the UFO and the alien or the ET on your in your yard on your porch as a little kid, have your beliefs in extraterrestrials changed or evolved in any way?
Oh, they've definitely evolved. Wow, no one's ever asked me that. That's a great question. I think the way I feel now about it is that I've only had positive experiences. I've talked to some people that have had very negative experiences or fearful experiences, and I get that. I've been thankful to not have anything, at least that I can remember. I might have some things that I can't remember. But my belief about it is kind of what you said before, is there's so much out there that we don't know. And there's way more than humans in Earth, way more than what's even in our solar system. And it has really opened up my awareness about everything, even like how anything consciousness related, like how time works and how just reality works. And, because they're so different from us. And the things that I've seen, like I've had experiences where I see them shapeshift right in front of me in an instant. And you have to think about, how is that even possible? Like we can't do that as humans. So like what, things like that. It's been really interesting, and just really, I've always been a very curious person. So it definitely feeds my, like curiosity bug, that I've had all these varied experiences, and it's just been a wild ride, and I hope to have many, many more.
No. Got me at a loss of words for a second. Just let me compose for a minute.
I have to show you something. So, like, I have a twin sister, and people will say, oh, these things run in families, sightings happen in families. And they're like, has she ever had anything? And I'm like, not that I know of. She's never told me that she has. And people would ask me, well, why do you think that is? And, anyway, so I have this birthmark on my arm.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it looks like a spaceship. That's just what I call it. And so I would tell people that, I don't know, maybe they're because we're twins, because I'm a twin, that especially when I was younger and they were maybe wanting to come along and visit or whatever, that would be like my symbol, that they would know, okay, that's the one we're supposed to take, and we don't mess with that one over there. So I like to mess with people and say, I have the alien birthmarks on my sister. She's just not involved in their experiments, basically.
Man, what do you think about the drones over that we've seen throughout the U.S. recently? The government's called them drones. Are they drones? Are they UFOs? What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's all of the above. I think because I've seen some really compelling videos. And it's really hard these days because you don't know what's AI and what's not AI and all this and stuff. But that's one thing that, has kind of changed my investigations over the past, year or so, is taking in consideration drone activity. I've learned a lot about that, more than I think that I really need to know. But I think it's a mix of our government having that technology and they're just kind of trying it out and they haven't revealed that that's us, that's our technology. But I also think that at the same time, the UFOs are like, hey, we can do that too. Here we go, and kind of show up. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely a mix of both. It's definitely hard to tell. Like you talked about the Phoenix Lights, there weren't at least, like recreational drones and drone hobbyists and things back then. I'm sure the government could have possibly, done something like that, but certainly not flares.
Yeah, definitely
certainly not Chinese lanterns. I've seen some that are clearly like Chinese lanterns that people think that they're UFOs. And it just really depends. I've seen so many videos that just at first glance, it's weird. It's like really, really weird. And you're like, what is that? And until you really see so many and study it and know, okay, well, that's a Chinese lantern and here's why. So I think, I love it when people watch those videos and share those videos, whether it's real or not, because to me, it's like, it just gets people thinking, like, what is out there? And to start looking up and like wondering. So
is that how you know? Is it just experience that helps you debunk people whenever they're like, I saw something and I have video evidence of it?
Yeah.
Is it just
definitely.
like experience that helps you determine that? Or is it intuition or anything else?
I think it's just experience. I've seen a lot of sometimes it's hard to convince people that are just adamant, and MUFON, kudos to them. They trained me really well and I had to go through all types of certification testing and all this type of stuff, and then did like joint investigations with somebody, so I learned the ropes from some really experienced folks, and I've seen a lot of videos from them as well as people that have sent me that are like, it's clearly just, I hate ones that people are in their cars driving and they think they're getting something outside and their windows rolled up and their car is moving. And I can't tell nothing unless it's like so very different than just a light in the sky. I can't do anything with that. Or, someone will, maybe if they're parked and their windows rolled up and they're taking a video out, but there's also raindrops on their windows and they think those raindrops, so again, if their video is really good to, 85% of the people, they're going to go, oh, that's not normal. I've just seen so many by now that I'm like, oh, I've seen something super similar a couple of times. So for the most part, it's probably this, but let's, I'll always ask more questions and try to get more information. But for the most part, I can spot, I guess, I don't want to say the fakes. They're not intentionally faking it, but the ones that are explainable.
Okay. Take us through the first time you were taken. What was that like?
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is January the 29th, 2022. I remember this. It's a long story, so I will shorten it. So it was...
Please tell your story. Take your time if you do.
It was about 3 a.m. and my cat generally wants out at that time. So he jumps on the bed, wakes me up. We go through this whole routine. I feed him. I let him out into the backyard. And I come back to bed and I just couldn't fall asleep. I had been going through some really difficult times at a job that I used to be at. And I was working like 70, 80 hours a week. I was just super stressed. And I was just thinking about how we were going into a Saturday and I knew I was going to have to work all day and I didn't want to have to work all day. So anyway, I'm just laying there. I can't fall asleep. And I started to be like, you know what? I'm tired of having all these negative thoughts. I just want to meditate and think positive thoughts. So I just tried really hard to just meditate and bring in all this positivity. And I did that for about 20 minutes. And then I started to feel like something was in the room. You know that feeling. Even if your eyes are closed, you can feel like if there's somebody standing behind you.
Yeah.
So I got that feeling and I already had on my pillow, I was turned looking towards my husband to the right and he's dead asleep, we could have an earthquake and he wouldn't wake up. And so I opened my eyes and I was in a really good mood because I had been meditating and stuff. If I had, I don't know what would have happened if I wouldn't have been meditating. I probably would have screamed. But so I'm looking and all I can see is on the other side of my husband, there's this creature, not human. It was definitely not a human. And it was kind of peeking up over my husband's chest. So all I could see was the top of its head with its eyes looking at me. and it had its arm like stretched out like towards my head, like it wanted me to grab its hand. And I was like, oh God, okay. And it had been a long time since I'd had any experiences, so it didn't like, I don't know, it didn't click right away what was happening. And then I started to get really excited because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to ask it 100 million questions. I need to know all about this. So I got out of bed and it was still over there. And I said, like, I don't know if I said it out louder in my mind, but I was like, it'd be more comfortable if you were over here. And in an instant, it was standing next to me. And it was probably, oh my gosh, so I'm 5'8". It was probably like 5'3", 5'4". And it was kind of like a gray ET, except, it had the large eyes and black eyes and all of that. And the skin was real wrinkly. It seemed more wrinkly than you would think. And there was like this soft pink kind of glow coming off of it. It's hard to describe. Kind of like, have you ever seen like a pink dolphin? It kind of had that vibe.
Okay.
There's freshwater pink dolphins, I think. I think they're freshwater pink dolphins. Anyway, so it was super, super like light pink. Anyway, and so I was just excited. I was like, oh my God, what's your name? Where are you from? Da 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 da. And it like, I was holding its hand. It was holding my hand. A very light, it was almost like holding a child's hand. It was so dainty and like delicate. And it put its like head towards me, like almost, I thought it was going to put its head on my shoulder. And as soon as it did that, like I felt like this sensation of like a warm blanket, and I just calmed down and shut up, basically, because I think it was like, you're too excited, shut up, So I got really calm and I was like, okay. And then right as that happened, I felt a hand right here on my other shoulder and realized that there was another one right behind me. And so I started to freak out because I'm like, it's going to choke me. Like I couldn't see it. All I know is there's a hand right by my neck. Yeah. So I got scared and then I kind of calmed down and I looked behind me and there was another one just like it, but it was much taller. It was probably 6 foot, but looked exactly the same. And it grabbed my other hand. So there I'm standing there with their hands in my hand. And I'm like, okay, well now what, And so we turn and we walk to like through the bedroom and then through our laundry room, and it leads out into our backyard. So I'm thinking, oh, must be a ship back there. They must be taking me to their ship. That's all I can think of. And so we start walking and I get really excited again. And I'm like asking, what's your name? Are you from here? Are you from there? What are you? Where are we going? What are we doing? And they did that thing again where they kind of calmed me down. And then I saw this screen appear in front of me, just out of thin air. And I don't remember what all was on it, but they were calculating my cycles per second. So like what my energy was vibrating at, and they were showing me the number. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but okay. And then I could hear like this chatter inside my head. And it felt like they were talking to each other and I was just hearing it. But I didn't know what the heck they were saying because it was just, the volume was super low and it was just garbled and I couldn't make any of it out. And I assumed that it was just telepathic. So I said something like, can you speak up? I want to hear what you're saying. And then I heard this like, okay, like loud in my head. And then I heard nothing else after that. I was like, wow. Okay, well, whatever. I really wanted to know. And they, so at one point, I asked again to the one on my left, I was like, what is your name? Like, do you have a name? Because I've had experiences since then with some that they're like, we don't have names. We're telepathic. We don't have names. And so, but the one that I asked, it said something like, I say he, because it just felt like a male kind of. I didn't see any male parts or whatever, but it just felt like a he. And it was something like Yarkum. That's all I could make out. And I have Googled that to death if anybody's ever heard that name or in relation to this and can't find anything. I'm like, okay. So then we stopped at the laundry room door, and instead of going through the laundry room door, we took a few steps back, and I have a couple ceiling fans, and we were like right underneath the ceiling fan. And the one on my left, or one on my right, put his other arm kind of around my waist, and I knew they were getting ready to pick me up. And like, I'm a big girl. I'm like, these little bitty skinny things are not going to be able to pick me up. But sure enough, as soon as that happened, so I'm still holding both their hands. The other one has me by the waist. And I start going up. As soon as my feet left the ground, I couldn't see anymore. Like, my eyes are still open. And it's at night, it's dark, but my eyes adjusted. I could still see everything going on in the room. But it just was like pitch black. And I could still hear them. I could still feel their hands, but I couldn't see anything. And we go up through my ceiling fan, through the ceiling, up through the second floor. My stepson's room was like right above us. And I remember thinking, are we going to pass through him? Is that going to wake him up? Is he going to scream? And then my husband's going to find me missing? Like, all of these thoughts going through my head about what is even, I must have dematerialized or whatever. And so we go up and it's just dark. I'm still just floating or whatever. I don't know where we went, how far we went. I don't know if the ship was just right above my house, but my eyes were only black for about 10 or 15 seconds. At least that's the time that I recall. And I remember actually I had looked at the clock on my phone when my cat woke me up, and it was like around 3 a.m. And when I got back, it was like 3:45. So all of this happened in a span of 45 minutes. So anyway, so once all of a sudden I could see again, I was inside a room. So I couldn't see a ship or anything. I was inside someplace. And it was just this vast blackness everywhere. There wasn't like walls or a room or whatever, but there were people, like human looking people, sitting in a circle, like having some kind of meeting. And like they saw us and we saw them, and they kind of stopped and looked at us and acknowledged that we were there because we were just passing through this room apparently. And so we just keep going up. And then the next room I get into looked like a room. It had walls, ceiling, floor, all of that. And everything was like a mint green color, sort of seafoam green. And there was a window over here to the side. And as soon as I saw this room, I started to get really scared because there were people in here too, but they weren't happy, laughing like the other people. They looked like they were being electrocuted.
Oh, wow.
And like they were standing like straight up at attention with their arms down to their sides, and they were just kind of slightly like shaking. And they were standing in these rows, like they were lined up very specifically. And there was about, I don't know, 12 to 16 people. And I was like, I don't want to be like that. Don't put me in this room. So once we've like fully got in the room and they put me, and I could feel my feet on the actual floor again, it was like all the people stopped shaking and they turned around and looked at me. Wow. And it was like I knew them. I was like, I know all of you people, but I don't know them from here. I only know you from here. You know, like it was very weird experience. It felt like a family reunion or something. So we're going all around, like the ETs are over here to the side, they're watching us. So we're going around like hugging and, oh my gosh, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. Like you've seen an old friend. And I don't know how long that went on. Not very long, couple of minutes. And then they have us in a circle. And they start pointing to a gentleman that's like two people to my right, the only guy in the room that I hadn't yet recognized. And he was wearing like a army type jacket and some khaki pants, kind of a heavy set guy. And the ET was kind of over here, and he was pointing at that man, and they were asking me, do you remember him? Do you remember him? Do you remember him? Do you remember? I mean, over and over. And I'm like, I had no idea who this guy was. He did not look like anybody I know. And I just couldn't, but I felt so pressured to answer. And I've been in the banking industry for so long. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of customers, whatever. And I just said, I don't know. Do I know you from the bank? And that's the last thing I said. And the very next memory I have is I was sitting back up in my bed, blanket on, I was just sitting there, wide awake. And I immediately picked up my phone and looked at it, and it was like 3:45, and I was like, oh my God, what? And I felt like I failed a test. I was like, what the hell was that? Like, who was this guy? Where did I go? Like, why'd they put me back? Like, how did I get back here, and what happened in between? So it was very, very, very crazy. And yeah, that happened in 2022. Another part of the story is that actually I ended up meeting that guy in real life, and he confirmed that on that same day he had missing time. And I was like, well, that validates that actually happened and you were there. And that's a whole nother story, but he's my only connection to somebody that I've had I guess a mutual experience with, because any other time, like my husband's there and he's just dead to the world, or I'm alone or something like that, and there's nobody else to substantiate the story, which can be frustrating, but also it's like, I'm just like, who cares at this point, It don't matter to me.
Do you think that they will show themselves to us in our lifetime?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely think that. Um, yeah, I definitely think that. I'm actually in the middle of writing a book right now, a children's book. It's in illustration right now. And it's called Are You, oh my gosh, why is this going out of my mind? Are They Ready for Us? And it's from the perspective of two cute little ETs, because it's for little kids. And, they want to show us themselves and they love us and all this kind of stuff, but we're not being very good to our planet and we're not being very good humans. And so they don't want to come here and just so we, start a war with them or whatever. So it's one of my, I don't want to call it a mission or whatever, but I think it's really important to start getting kind of kids acclimated to the fact that I think, yeah, within the next 5 years, it's going to be a very different world. I mean, especially with all these, I feel like disclosure's just around the corner, especially since we're having more governmental hearings. And I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's like chaos everywhere now. I mean, people can't get along, and just no matter what it is, just people just can't get along. And I don't know. I feel like one day they'll be here and they'll help us with some of our problems.
My show, I'm a huge mental health advocate, and I like to talk a little bit in each episode to my guests about experiences they might have had dealing with depression or anxiety having to do with the field that they're in. Have you ever had any experiences with depression or anxiety or anything in this field? Like, whether it's just people being like, come on, what are you talking about? That stuff's not real, or maybe something else like, why am I doing this kind of thing? Have you had any kind of experiences, and how did you deal with it?
Sure, I've definitely had anxiety, and I think a lot of it stems from just fear of what other people think. And you try to get over that, and you try to say like, it doesn't really matter because everybody. I love that you do this in your episodes, by the way. That's amazing. One of my, I don't know what you want to call it, taglines or whatever, is that all truths are true, because I really believe that whatever's true for somebody, their experience is valid to them. It doesn't matter if I believe it or not, as long as they believe that it's true for them and it serves them in some way. So it's just a shame that people like to feel like they have to be right, or to convince somebody that they're wrong, or this way of life is wrong, or that belief system is wrong. I just, yeah, it's been hard though to definitely open up to, everyone in my life. I've done so many of these now, and now that we have our own podcast and I'm putting more things online, there's only so much I can do to like block coworkers from my socials. Eventually someone's gonna find something and probably want to have a conversation with me, and I'll just have to deal with it. But at this point, that's probably the only anxiety that I have left, is now that I'm starting to put it out in the world. Because yeah, before it would have been, I mean, there's even people in my own, close circle that are like, what are you talking about? And that's kind of hurtful.
Yeah, definitely.
And I get it. I get it from their perspective. There's some stories that I hear that I'm like, wow, I just need to integrate that. Like, I need to really think about that for a minute. And even if I've not had a similar experience, that doesn't mean that they didn't really experience that. I mean, if somebody were to tell me I just flew around, my yard because I know how to fly now, I might be like, well, are you sure? Like, something like that. But for the most part, like, I've heard it all. I've experienced a lot. So it's like, why not just, give people respect and, let them do them.
Definitely. Out of all the times you've been taken, you said you've been taken multiple times, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Out of all those times, have you ever had actual conversations with the beings, like been able to converse with them and be able to learn about them or learn about anything? I'm not saying this quite correctly, I can tell, but have you ever been able to converse with them and just have meaningful conversations with them?
been able to have some limited conversations. Usually when I start talking, it's like they realize that I'm remembering and I'm conscious. And so sometimes they'll just knock me out or whatever. Or all of a sudden I'll just be back in my bed. And I'm like, oh, that's so frustrating sometimes. But I have had some instances where I'm in like a classroom setting and I'm learning things. I had one where they were showing us how to, and there were multiple students in this class, they were showing us how to levitate objects. And I mean, I tried it. I tried it when I was back here and I couldn't get it to work. But yeah, I've had limited conversations. A lot of the ones that have visited me are ones that are kind of like, they're coming to check on me because they're interested in either my DNA or I have an implant or something really crazy is going on in my life and they want to kind of check in on me. So that has been, or they're coming for a healing or something like that. So I've had a lot of those types of conversations. Whenever I try to get more information, that's when they kind of either shut off the communication or just I end up back where I started from.
I got you.
Yeah.
Like, so with a lot of abductees or people that have been taken, you've talked about people having burns on them and this and that. Have you ever had any kind of things, physical contact or any sort of probing situations or anything like that happen?
I definitely have had some where I might come back with like a red mark, but it's nothing that would cause any type of scar or not even prominent enough for me to be like, look, and someone be like, oh, that's the thing, you know.
Yeah.
I've definitely had memories of being operated on. I remember one time, this was probably 2 years ago, they came to my bedroom and they like to do this when they're operating on you, at least for me, they want to distract you with something nice and pretty. They want to distract you and make you think like you're having a dream. And that probably works for a lot of people, but I've had enough experiences now that like I know when it's a distraction. So if I wake up and I know I'm awake and I know I'm not dreaming and I see some cute little old lady reading me my favorite childhood story in a rocking chair next to my bed, I know good and well it's not actually a little old lady in my room in the middle of the night. So I'll say something like, quit, just show me yourself. Like, I'm not scared. Just show me what you look like. And sometimes they like converse with each other and decide whether they're going to show me or not. In that instance, they didn't change their appearance. But I noticed that there was all of a sudden another one in the room as soon as I said that. And he looked like Kevin Bacon. For whatever reason, that's what they wanted to present to me. But they flipped me on my right side and started like doing something in my rib area. And it was a lot of pressure. And up to a point, I could take it. And then I said something like, that's enough. Like, put me out. That's too much pain. And that's the last thing I remember. And then I woke up in bed and, you know, it's just A-okay. I had one, this is a more recent one, where I woke up and I felt something like underneath my pillow. And I woke up and there was like this kind of like a clown next to my bed, dressed all in black, and was doing like flips in the room. And I was like, no. I was like, I know it's you. Just show yourself. And as soon as I said that, that one clown guy turned into 3 ETs. And the thing that I was feeling under my pillow was the one who was trying to lift me up out of bed, because I sleep on a grounding mat sometimes, and he was trying to lift me up under the grounding mat and lift me up out of bed. And so I do appreciate, I told him, I was like, thank you for showing, thank you for showing me yourself and not trying to trick me. Like, I want to know what's happening to me. You don't need to do the smoke and mirrors thing. Like, just show me, and maybe I'll remember and maybe I won't, but hopefully I'll remember.
Is there times whenever you don't, or you're not able to remember whenever something like that would happen? Is it trauma based?
I mean,
Like, it's like, or are they erasing it, or?
I don't know. I don't know. I hope it's not trauma based. I hope there's not been negative interactions that I don't recall. I know that, like, definitely when they're operating on me, they don't want me to remember that, probably because it is traumatic for just anyone to be awake while you're being operated on.
Yeah.
But like that instance with the three little guys, they're real short and stocky, had real thick necks, and they were ugly. Like I'd never seen any like this before, and they were wearing all black. And usually I don't see the beings in clothes, or at least what I think of as clothes. Sometimes they'll come in robes or something like that, but they were wearing like black clothes. And they wanted to take me with them, and I was like, I can walk, just let me walk. And so I walked behind them. Well, I walked up our stairs, went out the front door, and I guess I was going too slow for them because I couldn't get the door to lock, and I was trying to push the button to get the door to lock. And they decided that I was going too slow, so they just lifted me up, and I floated behind them as they were walking. And then I'm looking down at the ground. There goes my cat running across, because I had already put him out. And I was like, oh, hey, And there were two ships in my front yard. And you should have seen me that next day going out there with my like meter, and I was like trying to take pictures and trying to like, do all this. But I saw two ships, and the one that I went into, I heard a couple of them talking to the side about how they were going to basically be replacing my implant, and there was some new method that they were going to be using. And so when I got in there, it was funny because I'm like wide awake, and I'm in my nightgown, and I see another guy in there I don't know who he was, but another human. I guess they were going to work on. I don't know who the heck he was. One of my neighbors, maybe. I'm not sure. And I saw like a scientist looking guy, and then the ETs were over here. And so I went up to this scientist looking guy, and I was like, have I been here before? Do you know me? Have we had this conversation, And he's like, oh, yes, many times. So we've seen each other before. And I was like, really? I said, okay. I said, I know they're getting ready to knock me out. So tell me, and this was a human. This was a human. He looked like a human, at least. I said, tell me your name. I said, I'm going to remember it. Tell me your name. Tell me your name. And he told me his first name. And then he told me his last name. And it was like, not a last name I'd ever heard of. And I was like, can you spell that for me? And he started to spell it for me. And he got about halfway through. And then next thing I remember, I was back in my bed. And I'm pretty sure they probably just didn't want me to know his name. But I'm like Googling the next day, like trying to look up, like, is this a real person? And who is this? And what, yeah. Crazy stuff.
Well,
crazy stuff.
I appreciate you coming on the show. It means a lot to me having this really cool conversation, learning all this different stuff because, it's not often you meet somebody who's willing to talk about their experiences with extraterrestrials or UFOs or anything like that. It's awesome being able to have this conversation for one. I'm very grateful for that. At the end of my show, I usually, before we get off, I usually do this thing because I'm a huge fan of gratefulness. Very big fan of gratefulness. Love, words are not working for me right now. Big fan of gratefulness. So what I usually do is I will say three things I'm grateful for, and I'll give my guests the chance to do the same. Most of the time, mine don't change. I very grateful for my support system, my beautiful wife, my two beautiful daughters, my mom, my dad, my brother, anybody who supported me doing literally anything I've done, audio dramas, music, movies, pro wrestling, podcast, anything, I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff without them. The second is, the guests that come on the show, because if I'm being honest, Allison, you didn't have to come on here. I'm just some random dude that likes talking to people. So I really appreciate the chance to get to talk to you and any other guests that have been able to come on and chose to actually accept the invite to come on to the show. It means the world to me. And the third is a two-parter. It's the good Lord above, because without God, nothing's possible. With God, everything is possible. And my health, because back in September, I want to say, I had an accident where I was working on my car underneath it. My dad was there working on it with me, and the car rolled off the jack and fell on me. And my dad and my wife had to help get the car off of me so I could get out from under it. Luckily, no broken ribs, no nothing. I didn't have any injuries, so I was very lucky. And ever since then, I've continually been getting healthier and healthier. So my health is the other. So, Allison, what are three things that you are grateful for?
Probably very similar to yours. Definitely grateful for God and creation and all that is, because I feel like this human experience is so rich and fun, and it can be really hard at times, but it's like every day's a new adventure and we get to choose. Like, we have free will, and I think that's, I don't know, people forget that because they get kind of so stuck in their jobs and routines and all of this, but I've been working on not being in that statistic of I just go to work and come home and watch TV every day, and that's just a really boring existence. So, definitely my support system and my health. It's funny when you said that you had an incident in September. I did as well. I had a near-death experience in September.
Oh,
The night before I was about to get on a plane and go to Sedona, Arizona, I started to feel really funny. My heart was racing, and I went to the ER and they found clots. My lungs were full of blood clots. And I had a procedure, and I have been healing ever since. I've still, seeing, having some issues or whatever. But if I had gotten on that plane, I would not have gotten off of that plane. So, very definitely thankful to be here and to be able to talk with people like you. Thank you so much for having me. It's like these types of venues. I feel like I can be open because I want other people to be open, even though it can be really hard sometimes, and you never really know. Like, when you reached out to me, I was like, well, I don't know if he's just going to want to hear like a nuts and bolts UFO story, or if I should even mention that I've been taken. Like, I'm even like fearful of just people who do want to hear, like, what should I tell them? How should I filter this? So I try to be as open as possible because I think it's important for other people to do that as well. And it ties into the whole mental health thing, is like, you can't hide a part of your identity. It's going to eat away at you, and you're going to go to your grave regretting that you didn't experience your full self and express your full self. And so I try to do that for people so that they can feel comfortable doing that too. You got to walk the walk or whatever. But one little quick thing, if I can, if people do want to reach out to me, they can email me at groundedgalactic@gmail.com, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about your experience.
I was literally just going to ask you, where can people find you?
Yeah. That or the ARC, so it's Arkansas UFO and ET Investigations, or ARK UFO is like the profile picture. Razorback red, so should be easily recognizable.
That's where I found you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here. I had such a good time learning about all this stuff and being able to chat it up with you. Thought it was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun, and thank you again for taking the time to chat with me and asking really good questions, and it's always a good time.
Definitely. Well, you have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, Adam.